There we go. Here we are on the auspicious 13th day of the month, which happens to coincide with it being Friday. So
Friday.
hopefully anybody that is superstitious, it's not going to bar you from watching this week's episode.
That's right, Friday the 13th. You know, in this neck of the woods, usually it was Friday the 13th, a couple of thousand motorcycle guys go to a town called Port Dover down on
Oh,
Lake Erie. It's a little town on Lake Erie, which I can't remember what the deal is, but every Friday the 13th, they go. I doubt if they'll do it when it's 10 below Celsius here to do that, but it's always a big deal for the bikers to go there
hmm.
and they just hang around. They don't do anything. They just all go down there and spend the day in Port Dover.
Well,
For anybody interested, Google it and let me know why they do it. But I don't think they'll be doing it in the middle of winter because it's a pretty nasty cold winter we're having.
well. Oh, there we go. Well, that's another whole issue of discussion.
Let's put that in our Rolodex for some other time.
Yes, yes. And I guess
I,
too, yeah, I just want to say one thing about what's transpired here in British Columbia over the last week. We have a lot of young individuals who have perished, and I don't want to say any more than that because I really think that the term "our thoughts and prayers are with you" is a empty
yeah,
statement. It,
yeah.
you know, and it will also, I think, maybe just denigrate into a discussion about the shooter. And I don't think that we should waste any airtime or any airspace on that
No,
individual.
no, no. And we need to. I agree with you. This constant refrain on these mass shootings or thoughts and prayers. We don't need. You're right. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to help. You
No.
need to do things before this happens, and it
Mhm.
seems that there is a kind of a societal illness that permits these atrocities to happen with the frequency that is unheard of. You know,
Yeah.
really, and you know, I remember the first time we came across a situation like this in Canada, which goes back to the early 70s.
The Polytechnique.
No,
No.
70s. My
Oh,
own high school. It was my high school in Brampton, where a guy went in with a shotgun and shot up the place, and I think 4 or 5 people were killed. Then he turned it on himself. Um, and I was coming back from Europe with my wife from our honeymoon. That's when this is 1972. And I remember getting off the plane and people were saying, "Did you hear about the shooting?" And they told me about it. And the big shock was it was my high school. It was a high school I graduated from, Brampton Centennial. So that's how far back this sort of atrocity happens. But now, you look back over the last 50 years, how many times, from the news that we can recall what was it, Sandy Hook, and I mean, there's lots of places where this has happened. Um, and the common denominators are there, and now more and more there are more common denominators. The point is, there's a there's there's so much broken in our society that we're not dealing with what leads up to it. We only deal with the thoughts and prayers after it, and that's not right. We
Mhm.
need to we need to be better than that, and we're not. So
Well, that's true. And I think that's also part and parcel of what's wrong. Yeah, in our case here in BC, we had a government that came in quite a few years ago. A very left-wing government, very socialist. Uh, and the leader at the time became ill, has subsequently passed away. But the individual that took over from him in the when he took over, he had an $8 billion surplus, or was it $800 million surplus? Not quite a billion.
Yeah.
And we are now talking when the budget gets presented next week sometime. There will be an austerity budget because we are now $13 trillion in debt, or $1 billion in debt. And this is in two and a half years.
Well,
and what has the money been spent on? We don't know. Where's the money going? We don't know. This is the government that came in and basically said the previous government made an error. The big tunnel that we have that goes and connects basically Surrey to downtown Vancouver is aged. It was built in the 50s. It needs to be replaced, and we're going to put up a bridge. Well, we had a change of government, and of course the bridge got canceled, and we're going to go back to an enhanced tunnel. And here we are 8 years later. We're still in the same tunnel. And the sad part of this is that if the bridge had been built, we had been driving over it for 2 years now. But we're going to be in debt.
Bob, I think the problem in BC is not an isolated one. In
Probably
BC,
not.
your chief Babu there, who runs the show, his claim to fame is a human rights lawyer. Okay, that's his claim to fame. He's an ideologue. He's never had to write a check to pay anybody. He's never had to meet a payroll. He's surrounded by this, ideological nonsense. Thinks money can just be, written out like a check. Someone else will cover the cost. You get what you pay for and who you vote for. So that's
and yeah, you're right on that level. Now we've had the same basic issue federally, at least for the last decade.
Yep.
And I said pre-production, I don't know whether we've been sucked in by good looks and things. Are we that shallow where, and anecdotally, but from trusted friends, they had their spouse who admitted at a gathering once that the only reason she voted for young Trudeau was because he had such nice hair. Now, what nice hair has to do with running a country, I don't know. But we seem to be caught up in this whole thing now that we've got this carpetbagger that has come in, who is in Canada only when it suits him, doesn't have very much of his investments in Canada, doesn't have his family in Canada. But in a heartbeat, we'd vote him back in. And not only would we vote him back in, according to the latest polls, they would give him majority government. When all through this particular session of Parliament, they said alarming, in my opinion, statements about, well, if the opposition would just stand aside and let us go ahead with our legislation, things would be better.
Well, no, they even took that one step further. If you don't agree with us, you're not a good Canadian. Well, how does a parliament? I mean, why bother having an opposition party? Why don't you be a good Canadian and become a total socialist Marxist country? Get rid of the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the next step in that logic.
It is, and I guess that I kind of jokingly said pre-production that is the topic for today. Is Canada broken, or is Canada really the Canada that we know? We're just so over inundated with shallowness, afraid to stand out. I mean, this is in essence a really classic case in bullying. we've got a government now that if you don't agree with them, they will cause you some kind of, call you some kind of an ist. And my God, we can't have that, because then I'm going to stand out in the crowd and I'm going to be labeled as an ist of some sort.
Yeah.
And, you know, you hate like heck to say there was the late 1920s, the early late 1920s, through to the late 1930s. We had a very, very similar situation where, basically a bully grasped power in Germany and caused all kinds of havoc for uh, groups in particular, be that Jewish, be that the gay community. You know, it, you can see that coming now. There's so much anti-Semitism going on. If you don't agree with this, you're not part of you're not part of the solution. You are the problem, and it to me is worrisome.
Yeah, well, the dismantling of society and then rebuilding it is what a Marxist does anyway. So this is not something that we should be sort of shocked at. The purpose of the idiot king that was elected in 2015 was to have him take the zings and arrows, while the little goobers in the background did the dirty work, because he didn't have any real ability to do anything. The guy was a failed high school teacher, a failed drama. The guy's a nobody, except his old man was intellectually a tower compared to him. But he came in on the name name recognition. But the damage that was done was not done by him. He was basically the front man for this, because anything you look at in retrospect now that sticks out in the archives, it was one stupid thing after the next that he said. But in many ways, it proved the point when he said he really respected the Chinese because they could do things very quickly. They could turn things around on a dime. Well, yeah, if you're a communist regime, dictatorial regime, you can do things like that. But that was really the slip that was showing, and there are many other incidents.
Well, I think now we've got the same thing with our current leader that's cozying up to a communist.
He's the cleanup pitcher, Bob. The guy ran as in baseball, he did 7-8 innings. And this guy who's running the show now, he's the cleanup pitcher. And he looks sharp. Don't let's mistake him for being the dummy that his predecessor was. This guy is slick. Make no mistake. And he's now got the same team that the other guy had, except now they're well and truly entrenched. But what happens with the trading season's begun, because he's getting rid of some of the deadbeats and sending him out to pasture. Like, one famous Toronto police chief is now going to be the high commissioner in London. You got
a former deputy prime minister, of which there really isn't such a spot in Canada.
Well, no, but she's now the owner of the ATM machine in Europe, for Ukraine, but not even there. And look, it doesn't matter. It is broken. It's been broken into pieces where the bits and pieces are run by ideologues, and the vast majority of Canadians are too busy trying to figure out how to pay the bills to really pay attention. And the trifecta of this particular administration over the last 10 years is, one, you corral the media, and when they make which they've done. Then second, you corral the culture and the educational system, which they've done. And then lastly, you find a boogeyman, which they've done. So now you have the trident with which you can, go ahead. All this works well until it falls apart. And, I think we're headed towards that. And in fact, what we see in Alberta is, and in Quebec is exactly, let's not dwell on it. We'll see how that works out. But it's very clear that if you're looking at a change in Alberta, you're a anti-Canadian, you're a traitor. If you're looking for a change in Quebec, well, that's just natural. That's okay because they're a nation within the nation. Okay, well, I don't hear too much negativity about the fact that it's quite likely a PQ government will take over at the next provincial election.
Well, that's true,
that's
and
normal.
I don't think that I would be misquoting Premier Smith in Alberta, who has indicated that in her opinion, Alberta should be a nation within a nation. I think she's very, very much pro-Canada, but wants a
Yeah.
better deal for her province.
Well, in fact, when you say a strong Alberta and a sovereign Canada, isn't that the same as what Quebec is? Maître chez nous, masters in our own house, but we'll just hang on to the Canadian passport and the dollar.
Mhm.
Oh, and the
Yeah,
subsidies from those other guys out west.
yeah. Well, and again,
These
just
are
to
these are
not
old
to
Corby tales that we know about.
yeah, and not to dwell on the issue, but for the people that are in uh, Alberta that are thinking that it would be okay to be the 51st state, take a long, hard look at what's going on to the south of us, and you'll find that really there's not that much difference between what's going on there and what's going on here,
Oh, we're cut from the
except it's
same
on a
cloth.
larger scale, obviously. But
Well, yeah, you've got Hollywood. We have Toronto.
yeah,
The center of the universe, as opposed to the center of culture that drives politics in this country.
and you think that we've got it bad, but I don't think we've ever reached what the U.S. has reached on the, I don't know. It's become an annual event. The debt ceiling. We're going to shut down the government. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And the only thing that really hurts are the people that rely on social assistance, passport issuance, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, but like Canada. And I guess you may have found that too, the one or two times that we as a civil service in Canada went on strike, it always carried on because the senior executives and the managers still got paid.
Yes.
Now, I think that somebody had said it right, if you are shutting down a government service or the civil services on strike, then nobody in the government gets paid, including the politicians, including the legislators. And I bet you things would clean up pretty quick. It's like the MP who I've never heard of before, but I admire greatly, has said, I can, in all good conscience, take the pay raise that's coming to me as a matter of automatically.
Yes.
I can in good conscience take that. And now he is being ridiculed. Maybe ridicule is a hard word, but he's certainly being laughed at and joked about. And I guess maybe because he's got principles and nobody else does.
Well, look, you've said it many times. How do you know when a politician is lying?
The lips are
Lips.
moving. That's right.
The ones that are ridiculing him just are just flapping their gums. But it is what it is. I mean, look at the craziness that's going on with the bridge between Detroit and Windsor. Um, the that that's I was astonished to read the president's comments on that. Clearly driven by political exigencies on the American side, because the guy who owns the Ambassador Bridge is a big heavy duty Republican supporter, and they don't want to lose any money on the bridge, which is 100 years old and requires some serious work to be done on it. Everybody knows the Ambassador Bridge is really overloaded, and why Trump would come out with the statement that he did, that, you know, it was a lousy deal done between Canada and Obama. Well, that might be, but, you know, the United States has no skin in that game because that bridge was built with Canadian money and underwritten by the Canadian government. Okay, now if you want to buy half that bridge back, feel free, you know, because I'd be happy to see $3 or $4 million returned to Canada out of the 7 or 8 million that bridge actually costs, because that's what that bridge is in the end going to cost. And you want to do serious bilateral discussions. There's a good way to start.
Yeah.
Okay, and that
But
and you know, that's how it should be. That bridge is owned by the government of Canada, just as the bridge that crosses further upstream is owned by the Moran family. Okay, fine, but you know, I just found that to be somewhat of a bizarre a political move that really, if there was a good relationship between Ottawa and Washington, that
yeah,
that
I
wouldn't
was
have
going to
not
say that.
happened.
Yeah.
That this just indicates how terribly broken that has become, you know, and it's clear that the cleanup picture we talked about earlier is doing everything possible to wreck the agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, just as much as Trump wants to go bilateral. There's
Mhm.
no, you know, so I guarantee that there's going to be a bilateral discussion between Canada and the U.S. on trade. The USMCA, CUSMA, whatever the hell they dreamt up in Ottawa to rename it, to give it a Canadian twist, it's dead. It's as dead as a doornail.
Mhm.
Um, and that brings us to the discussion we had pre-production about Jamil Javani, who went down to see his
Yeah.
pal J.D. Vance, and how all the slings and arrows this guy got. Well, excuse me,
And still
um,
getting. Yeah.
and then still getting, because he's ugly. He's an ugly guy. Well, I mean, this is so, again, the juvenile approach of Canadian politics. Let's not even go there. But you know, if he went down there and was able to convince Orange Man that a real free trade deal would be good, what's wrong with that? You know, we don't need to be the 51st state. We just need to be a sovereign country that can have a good free trade agreement with the number one customer that we have. Period. End of story.
Well, yeah. And as you said, you know, at times where you are with the bridges getting backed up, you know, 5, 10 kilometers in length. We've had the same thing here, or you know, one of the trucks has been not shut down, but slowed down, and traffic backs up the various highways and to freeways. It's a pretty good indication of where our trade is going. I don't see the same kind of thing going out to the container port at Point Roberts here, with trucks backing up and getting over to our next largest trading partner, which is what, 5% of our trade. You know,
Yes.
it's just
It's
it's
silly.
just so much smoke and mirrors.
Well, it's silly. It's the whole thing shows how juvenile it is. But frankly, the advice that I would give, which is probably one that some people listening or watching will be aghast to hear, I would tell Pierre Poilievre to get his sorry backside down to Washington and meet with people and tell them point blank: A, Canada's a sovereign country. We have no interest in being the 51st state. But B, we need a free trade agreement, and stop dicking about with this business of, you know, talk 51st state, have a free trade. Make it so that if you're able to convince the powers that be down there that everybody wins on a free trade agreement, and you don't need, by the way, most of the people I speak to wouldn't want Canada as a 51st state anyway. It would totally screw up their Congress, because you're going to end up with a Democrat government for the rest of your living days, because there will be only 2 provinces that might vote Republican out of the 10 that go down there. The rest, you want to be Democrat, just, stick Canada to the U.S. and you'll never have a Republican government ever again. Okay, and you need a socialist state linked to the U.S. like you need a hole in the head. So
Well, that's right. Yeah.
your
Because
best
the analogy I heard on that, Tom, was that Canada is the size of California.
Yeah.
And it's about the same kind of breakdown between Republican and Democrat
That's
in
right.
California as it would be here. So
That's right. And the last stat I saw was that Canada has the GDP of the state of Texas. So, enough of this nonsense. So, again, if Poilievre had the mettle to go down there and forget what the pundits at the state broadcaster says, go down there and feel him out. Take your best shot, and then come back. And if there really is an election called, then we know as voters we have two choices: the status quo, or whatever deal he can make with the powers that be in Washington. I personally want to see a Canada that is united coast to coast, sovereign, but carrying its weight, and not afraid to trade. If free trade is we can do stuff that the Americans can do, let's do it then. Let's prove we can do it. But all this other malarkey is not going to do it. Sitting around trying to make a deal with a bunch of Marxists in Beijing isn't going to do it. Sitting around trying to make a deal with the screwballs in the European Union who don't know if they're punch board or drilled isn't going to do it. Doing some kind of deal with the Indians who have really no interest in Canada other than sending all their people here who need cheap jobs for a while. I mean, enough of this nonsense. The United States and Canada are stuck with each other. Like it or not, that's just the way it is. All right. It's geography, it's history, it's all those other things. We can do very well, thank you very much, and we pick our spots, and we don't have to be part of the U.S. to do that. But we also don't need to pick a fight with someone that's 12 times your size, because then you will become part of the U.S. and not the way you might have thought, where there's a happy ending to that story. So, like I said, it's time to take your short pants off, put your long pants on, go down there, and show that there are alternatives to the Marxist screwballs that have been running this place since 2015. And if you can't, then we're done anyway. Okay. I mean, you throw up your hands, you go, okay, fine. If that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, and again, the government is trying its best to say that they're not going to have a snap election, which means they're going to have a snap election. So come sometime this spring, we'll probably end up going to the polls. In consultation with your provincial leader there, who is I can't even say he's a Tory. I think he's just a out-and-out liberal.
He's a failed politician. He's absolutely failed.
And the same as the individual we have running our province. Just Ottawa. I mean, it's a leader surrounded by a bunch of sycophants, and that's all you got. He doesn't want to hear that he doesn't have any clothes on. He doesn't want to hear anything that makes him uncomfortable or cringed, and we have to, like you're right, Mr. Poilievre has to stand up, and he's going to be ridiculed.
He's only got one. He's got two strikes. He's got to knock this next swing.
He's Babe Ruth looking up there at the bottom of the ninth, the 2 out and 2 strikes. He's in dire straits.
He's up against this pitcher. Like I said, he's the cleanup pitcher, and so far he's not been able to deliver because he can't. He's got something just doesn't add up with him going to DC. So he's not able to close the deal. So again, a baseball analogy, he's not a closer yet, because he said he was going to have a deal by the 21st of June with the U.S. on trade. He didn't.
That was last year.
That was last year. He couldn't do it, and I still think he can't do it. Because in my opinion, there's only one deal we can have, and that is a serious free trade deal. Like no holds barred free trade deal. Okay, that's
And
the
within that trade deal, the understanding that if the United States wants to go to Australia or South America or Europe on trade, that we have the same ability.
yes.
We don't have to continue to maintain a north-south. We can look east-west. And
Well, let's face it.
maybe
If
I'm
we
being
could look
idealistic.
east-west, we would have done it already. Okay, because this is the quite like the other day was a guy from Luxembourg over here. Now, most people couldn't. Luxembourg is this. I mean, come on, it's the size of Surrey, for all intents and purposes. Here's a simple question: what does Luxembourg need from Canada? What do we need from Luxembourg? Zip. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, what's Luxembourg? It's a place they launder money for the most part, like the Cayman Islands and other places. But Luxembourg trade deal, come on, let's get serious. If we could make trade deals with other countries and for other than to dig out stuff out of the ground and ship to them, we would have done this already. Okay, we don't make anything right now that anybody really wants, because I don't think the Germans want anything from Canada. I don't think the Japanese want anything from Canada. I don't know what Nigeria wants from Canada other than money for the prince so that they can get into my bank account. I mean, what does the UK need from Canada? We don't, this is my big problem with all this yakety yak we've been listening to for the last year from this bunch in Ottawa. Tell me what it is that we make that somebody else wants, because you haven't been able to prove that case. In fact, you don't even talk about it. All you talk about is MOUs, and this other this crazy notion that the Chinese are going to build cars in Canada. I'm not going to build any cars in Canada. What the hell for? They'd be undercutting their own workers in China. They're not going to do that. This is a pipe dream.
Well,
okay.
And again, those cars that China does build, even if they build them and ship them here, they've apparently done that in Israel, and any Israeli who is in a military position or government position has been told that they have to park their cars 4 or 5 kilometers away from their work and then make it to work, because they don't want those cars around any of their installations. Now, again, 49,000 cars, big deal. Maybe they'll be $3,000 a piece or whatever it's going to be. So people will buy them because it's cheap. They can own a car, they can get around. But what's going to happen when the US decides that that is a spy mechanism and you will not be able to take your BYD into the United States? Well, we're going to be building up to the big boogeyman again. But
when will the government of Canada and the military say, don't bring your BYD onto Canadian forces?
Well, they'd never say that, first and foremost, because we might offend somebody.
Oh, we'll offend somebody. Okay. Well, I think this is all craziness anyway, long and short of it. As for the polls that are constantly being bandied about, I don't believe anything that the bought off media tells me about polls anyway, because why would they bite the hand that feeds them? All right. This is all
particularly the CBC, which gets more money on an annual budget than our intelligence service gets.
Yes, that's all you need to know.
That should be a very eye-opening bit of information for anybody that wants to vote for this government.
Look, this morning they came down with the revelation that there are over 600 organized crime groups freely operating in Canada. Okay, now, shock of all shocks.
Excuse me.
Oh, I didn't know there was gambling going on here. Look, in the early days when I was a young officer at the airport, and we watched all kinds of hoodlums coming and going into the country, okay, from the States in particular. And I remember in my early 20s, I asked some of the senior guys, I remember this clearly, how come these guys come in? They have guns, they're known hoodlums and whatever. And the answer was, as long as they keep their nose clean here, they can come here and go home. That was the golden rule that was dreamt up back in the day. Okay, you can be a scumbag hoodlum. You can come to Canada, just don't do what you do wherever you came from, and you go back home. That was the rule. And I thought, wow. So why are we asking all these stupid questions like, do you have a criminal record? Yeah, it's about that long. Oh, that's okay because you're not going to do anything while you're in Canada. I live in a part of the province that during those days had all kinds of hoodlums from Detroit that would spend their summers here. These guys were bad guys, but they didn't cause any trouble in this neck of the woods. They go to the beach like everybody else. They had the $1 million homes along the lake, and everything was hunky dory. Okay, this is one of the deep dark secrets of this neck of the woods that I live in. All right. I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Hoffa's and it's one of the foundations of one of these $1 million homes up here. But it's a joke, obviously. But
Yeah.
we're a soft touch. When they took the visas off of Mexico, they opened up the cartels to come into this country willy-nilly. Okay. Apparently, as long as the Mexican cartels don't mess stuff up here, they're okay here. Well, I suspect that they're probably well and truly part of the problem that we have with our pals from Beijing making the funny stuff that people take that kills them.
Mm-hmm.
I have to use that analogy because YouTube doesn't like you to name funny stuff that kills you.
Well, yeah, it's all part and parcel of what's going on with the various bills that are before Parliament here, where they're going to cut off our internet access if they don't like. Oh no, we're not. Oh, but
we're all going to have to talk in euphemisms once that happens. We'll have to make up names of things, like gun person.
Well, that too, but and the other bill that's going on now was the oh God, what was it? It was just on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's another stupid bill that's going on here. And if we don't pass it because of the interference by the opposition parties, it's just going to ruin our country. Well, if you have these pieces of legislation that take away our rights, take away our money, take away whatever it is that we're supposed to have, but you will never find written down anywhere. There might be legal precedents set, but we don't have anything written like the U.S. Constitution that guarantees you the rights of this and the rights of that. Then, yeah, maybe we are broken and maybe we don't deserve fixing. And I guess the next election will be the telling point of that.
Well, there's the old saying, keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Then the next election, if it goes the way the so-called polls say, and I don't think that's correct, then you're not going to get a different result. By the way, the Americans are closing down the government as of midnight tonight because you want to talk about screwy politics. They've decided that there's no money in the kitty to pay the people at DHS or anywhere else for that matter because the Republicans insist the Democrats insist on getting rid of immigration enforcement altogether for ludicrous reasons, but that's it is what it is. But the spin-off of that is that if they have to close things down, pre-clearance in Canada, where our American friends clear flights, that may well be affected. And I've heard just unconfirmed rumors that there's actually talk of getting out of that deal with Canada as well, and basically punishing Canadian Airlines, who actually get the sweet deal of flying into various places in the U.S. where there is no immigration and customs facilities. So, the Torontos, the Vancouvers, the Calgarys, the Montreals that have pre-flight inspection, you can run these flights into these small airports into the U.S. because it's all done in Canada. But if you pull the pin on that, those flights are kaput.
Yeah. Yep, that basically means like the flight from Calgary to Palm Springs going through John Wayne Airport is done. You know, you won't
Absolutely.
be doing that. You'll be flying into LAX.
Yep. You look at the route structures of the airlines, the three big ones in Canada, and it's very telling. Okay, not only that, but the charters, the Sun Flights of the world, the wing, what do they call it? Sun Wings of the world, same problem. So we're that's a knife edge thing too. If you close that down, it's done. And there's not much we can do because it's not, even though it was a bilateral agreement, Canada has no skin in that game whatsoever because there are no pre-flight inspection northbound or into Canada from the US. It simply doesn't exist. Okay, it never did since 1952. Yeah. It's almost as old as I am. This agreement. It's 74 years ago they signed this pre-flight inspection or pre-clearance or whatever you want to call it. But there's no guarantee that if you keep pissing off the powers that be in Washington and they go, you want to play hardball, we'll play hardball with you, and that'll hurt thousands of people involved in the airline industry, never mind the hospitality industry, from travel agent, everything. The ripple effect would be quite something.
Yeah.
So anyway, just like I said, it's just a little bit of a smell that I'm getting from various places, and that would be something. That'll be something to talk about. And by the way, all the elbows up people be very happy because they don't want to go there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to go to the States.
Apparently.
But you won't have to because there's going to be no airplane to take you there.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of brings us full circle to the point of, we are probably going to have an election. Are we going to be trying the same thing, expecting different results, or are we going to actually take the big step and break out of our comfort pattern and actually try something different for a change? Time will tell.
Put on your big boy pants and compete.
Yeah,
we can compete. Okay, because if we're so smart, let's do it. Let's not be afraid. Okay, but what we have here is we want to be comfortable, but then get to squawk like chickens in the barnyard. You can't do that. Okay, if you want to get your hands dirty and go out there and compete in agriculture, in manufacturing, in products and services, name it, compete seriously. Okay, stop talking about we can buy from ourselves and we don't need the American. Okay, fine, do it that way, but you're going to find out you're going to be eating bugs, not because some ideologue thought it was a good idea to save the planet to eat bugs. It's because that's all we're going to get to eat is bugs. But anyhow, hey, we did it.
Yes.
Don't forget, like you always say, subscribe.
Hit the like button.
Hit the like
button. Buy us a coffee.
Buy us a coffee. And we're also going to, I can tell you, you're one of the first to hear this. I'm working on a way in which people can support us on a wallet that is created for our own podcast through Rumble. So we'll see how we can do that. So because it'll make it easier for everybody. But nevertheless, it's in the pipeline, and we'll see. It's something that I think we can do, and we could certainly use a little bit of financial support on this, but we're working on it. But
yes,
you can't buy us off. So you might be able to support us, but we won't do what you want us to say. We'll still be a pain in the behind for some people.
No doubt. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you next week, more or less.
More or less, yes.
All right.
Have fun.
We'll work on it.